Bud Anderson, I'm humbled to be at your side. Sir. Thank you, Jack. Thank you, Jim. You know, I never know what I'm going to talk about when I get up here. I'm sure glad to be here. That means I survived another year. You know, these guys in the Warbird movement are pretty terrific. I really take my hat off to Jim and Jack and all the rest of the Warbird community for restoring these national treasures and keeping them in the air so people can see them. It's you know, that's special. And I want to add my thanks to Jim. I wasn't here yesterday when they had the dedication of this new pavilion or alley or whatever we call it. I thought that was really special that he would step forward and pick up the tab for that. We've already thanked him, but I wanted to add my thanks. And you talk about having two airplanes, you know, painted like your own airplane in World War II. Well, you know, most guys would probably give a body part to have one airplane painted like their own airplane in World War II. But I've actually had four. There's one in Norway flying right now, an old crow, and these two. And then there was Mickey Rupp from Florida painted his like a silver, a D. But he changed it into a racing configuration, and later it crashed. But you know, that's pretty special to be able to do that, have those airplanes flying. I had a real great experience here a couple of weeks ago. I got two guys in the crowd somewhere here. Darrell Bond and Rob Gordon. If you're around, raise your hand somewhere so that people can see you. I know they're out there somewhere, but anyway, these two guys sponsored a trip for me, or I went along on a trip with them to England. And we went to Duxford and saw a great air show. It's the 70th anniversary of the Battle of Britain, and a two-day air show. After that show was over, we drove up to Suffolk County to my old World War II base. Now it's back in agriculture now, but there's still remnants around there. And the Brits have an organization called the Friends of the Leiston Airfield that keep the history alive. And these people met us and showed us around there. And there's a little plaque in town. There's a little museum, and we went into this one area where my squadron was, and there's a little guard shack with a map in it, and it shows how the field was laid out. And you look at it, you know where you are, and then I looked there and saw this little taxiway that comes around. By the way, this area has been turned into a what they call a caravan park, where the people from London come up for the weekend to get out into the country. And I see this shape of the taxiway where my airplane was. And the first time I went there, the guy told me, he says, "That's still there." And so we went down and stood on the very spot where my old crow stood. You know, that was a pretty nostalgic moment for me to go back to that place. And I thank Darrell Bond for getting me back there again. So I don't know what we're going to do. You know, the theme this year is Salute to Veterans. I'd like to talk about 2 or 3 veterans from the 363rd Fighter Squadron. We were formed up in the United States and trained as a fighter group to go fight the war somewhere in the world. And then we ended up in England, and we got our P-51 Mustangs. We were the first Mustang unit in the 8th Air Force. And we started flying combat in early February 1944. Essentially, I flew all my combat in 44 at the age of 22, by the way. And how we got our combat experience, the flight leaders, we went to another fighter group to go on a combat mission with them, and then come back and lead our own unit into it. We had a guy by the name of Lloyd Hubbard in our unit. We were classmates, and I would say that he was a great pilot, and we all expected that, you know, he would be the one, you know, that you would think that would survive and be the most successful. He goes out on this mission with the 354th Fighter Group, flying number 4, the most vulnerable guy in the flight. Goes out on his first mission. You know, when you go on a first mission, you're kind of just hanging on. You're just trying to survive and get the experience, get over the fear, and so that, you know, you take it easy. You hope to how you go on just a patrol over the coast of France and take it easy. Well, it was a deep mission. We went in, escorted back deep into Germany, and then when we came on the way home, the guy leading decided to go down on the deck and strafe an airfield. And Lloyd Hubbard, being number 4, he was the last guy across the field when everybody was alerted. He got blown out of the sky on his first mission. I mean, that made a real impact on us. Then the other 2 guys I want to talk about is, you see the 3rd airplane over there, painted in our colors, Gentleman Jim. He was in my flight, trained in my flight here in the United States, and went overseas with us. And he was a great pilot. He was aggressive, eager, and I might also say he was the first one that went to town, you know, after we landed. Gentleman Jim, we called him. He was a great guy, and he was, I think he had 7 victories, and when it came his time to leave, he didn't leave. He didn't go home and take an R&R and come back for a second tour. He just stayed there and kept flying. And I'd already gone home, and now here it is, it's into 45 already. And he was out, I know he was with Don Baquet, another one of our guys. And they got into a dogfight with Messerschmitt 262s, the jets. And for some reason, these jets decided they wanted a dogfight. You know, I mean, to get into a turning dogfight, which was a big error on their part. And Don Baquet shot one down, and he said it was the best dogfight he was ever in. He was in a steep turn, and he got on the inside of him, and he fired and hit him right in the engine, and the darn engine exploded, and the guy went in. When he was doing that, Jim Browning was engaging one someplace else. And Don couldn't find him. He disappeared. He looked all over for smoke, you know, from the ground, called him on the radio, and he vanished. So when they got back, he didn't arrive, so they filed a missing in action thing. Years and years later, we found out what happened. He and another Messerschmitt, another jet, got into this dogfight, and they got turned around, and they came at each other head on, you know, like this. OK Corral, coming right at each other. Neither one of them would break, and they collided. They vaporized both of them and their airplane. And they didn't find, they couldn't find out that, you know, there was no wreckage, there was no bodies. And it took years for I was amazed what the Army did. I've got a pile of papers that thick that I got years later from their investigation of trying to find the remains of Americans missing in action. You know, there's still something like 40,000 servicemen still missing in action in World War II. More guys that were missing in World War II than were killed in Korea. I mean, in Vietnam.